Welcome to another episode of the Elite Agent Masterclass. Today, myself and Jack Durkin are joined by Mr. Chris Webb, who is currently based over in Portugal and has been for the last 5 weeks. But as he explained to us offline, has still been working solidly 8 till 5 every single day, coaching, delivering his value, giving absolute brilliance across all platforms. Chris and I first came into contact via LinkedIn. I saw his content. I thought, yeah, this guy knows some stuff. So we've got to get him on the pod and get some of that wisdom out of his head and into the Elite Agent Masterclass. So Chris, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me on. It's been very kind of you. Thank you very much.
No, it's absolute pleasure. And I'm glad to hear that you're having some downtime whilst you're in Portugal. But I know, obviously, you and I have spoken prior to now, so I've got to know you a little bit. This is the first time you're getting to meet Jack, and I know Jack's got a few questions that he wants to fire your way from the get-go. So, Jack, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. I've been following for a little while now and seeing a lot of your content that you've been putting out there, and it seems that your audience is growing wider and wider. I'm seeing more and more of your stuff popping up. But I'm really curious to find out where it all started. So with your now coaching career, where did that begin?
So I initially was an estate agent for a very long period of time, hence the wrinkles and the Botox is trying to cover it up these days, and hairline and whatever else it might be. So I was an estate agent from the age of 18. It was kind of my first sort of proper job, let's call it, in the grand scheme of things. And I started off as a junior negotiator where I would work 6 days a week. My one day of the week off was a Wednesday, which is really great to have a social life when you're 18 years old and your one day of the week off is Wednesday and your friends are either at work or at university. And then kind of rose my way through the ranks and did all the correct stages of negotiator, senior negotiator, branch manager, all that sort of stuff. And then ended up some 15, 16, 17 years later with the property franchise group where I was performance director. And effectively my role there was kind of my first job sort of off the front line effectively. And at any one time I'd look after 100 or so franchisees. And my goal there was to basically make them as productive and effective as possible. Because as being a franchisor, if your franchisees are doing really well, then you're doing well as well. So that was kind of my goal there, was to take those 100 or so businesses and go, right, how can we make these guys more profitable? How we can make them as rich as we possibly can do? Because if they're getting really rich, then as a franchisor, you're getting quite rich as well. So that was sort of my first taste of sort of helping other people. And I think for me, that was sort of a bit of a drug. And I do my job now because I enjoy helping people. And it sounds very cheesy and, you must be in it for the money, Chris, and all this sort of, really, I just enjoy helping people. And the fact to get paid for it is absolutely a massive bonus in the grand scheme of things. So I was with the property franchise group for 5 years and it was great. Amazing employer, great place to work. But when you're working with, 100, 200 people, for example, at any one time, it's a little bit like herding cats. And you'd have a video call with 100, 200 people, and half the people would be having lunch, half of them would be walking their dog, half of them would be falling asleep sort of thing. There'd be like 10, 20% that were really taking notes and really taking on board. But a lot of people kind of, wasn't quite sinking into that sort of one-to-many approach. So with the estate agent consultancy, my goal was to kind of downsize that, I suppose, and make it more customizable, because I don't want to work with 200 people. I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt, thank you very much. What I'd rather do is just work with that percentage on that video call that would have been the ones paying attention, if you wanted to grow their business and make a success of it. Great, I'll work with you guys. That's absolutely brilliant. We want to make a success. We're all on the same boat together. We're all kind of pulling in the same direction. So that's ultimately my goal, is just to help the guys I work with. That's really where it comes down for me. And for me, if I listed a house tomorrow, I would be moderately happy about it. But one of my clients list a house, I'm like, winning at the World Cup sort of thing. So for me, that's what it's all about.
Love that. I love that. I love the bit in the middle where you almost caveated it with it sounding a bit cheesy, but it's the reality of doing something you love, isn't it? That, you do it and you love it. And as a byproduct of that, it's like the Japanese philosophy of ikigai, isn't it? You've found your ikigai, you've found something you're good at, found something you love, found something that can pay you. What's the fourth one? Is it the fulfillment? But I know there's 4. And so you then found your ikigai because you're doing something you love and you get paid. And so we talked about it offline. You're in Portugal, have been for the last 5 weeks. Yes, you're working, but it presents you the opportunity of location freedom and lifestyle freedom. So I think good on you. Like, you're doing something you absolutely love and you can pick and choose what you do and where you do it.
I think that this is a slightly longer story, but I'll paraphrase it slightly. So shameless pitch for PropX, which I'm talking at next week. I think it was a week after. I'm doing a big talk about this for 20 minutes. I wasn't happy with where my life was historically. So I went through all the stages, went through the ladder steps, and I did this and did that sort of thing because I kind of thought that's where the world wanted me to be. And you kind of go for promotions and get more money and get the car and the house and all this sort of stuff, sort of thing. But a couple of years ago, I was like, actually, I'm not happy with what I've got. I'm not happy with where I am in life, sort of thing. Yes, I could do the same job and I could turn up from 9 to 5 every single day, go to the gym in the evenings and go for dinner on a Friday night, sort of thing. But actually, I was kind of, I wouldn't say living someone else's life because that sounds a bit over the top, but I definitely, I'd done everything that everyone else had wanted me to do and sort of expected me to do. And kind of my life had become a democracy where everyone who was in my sort of sphere, your mum, your dad, your friends, your cousins, whatever it may be, they all sort of had a say over my life and about how that should look, sort of thing. And basically, I wasn't happy. And I literally thought to myself, well, what I've done for the last, 20 years has got me to this stage, but I'm not happy where I am. And I thought, actually, well, what makes me happy? So things that make me happy. I like traveling. I like seeing the world and going like exotic places and, getting terrible British sunburn and whatever else it might be. I enjoy helping people and I enjoy meeting new people. So if those are things I enjoy, well, if I just focus on those three things I enjoy, so I basically built myself a business which is focused around helping people. Number one is involved meeting lots of new people, which is absolutely amazing. And thirdly, if I want to go and work from Portugal for 5 weeks and still do my job to the high standard I can do, amazing high fives around. So I've kind of, over the last couple of years or so, I've kind of tried my hardest to change my life from a democracy to more of like a dictatorship, where actually I do what I want to do, and if you don't like it, you can jog on, basically. That was a polite version.
So I have got a question, and I think, sorry, Jack, because I know that you have got something on the tip of your tongue, but I need to dive in because it's on this thread. And so you obviously walked away from doing the operational, support role in the franchise group, which would have inevitably come with a very good salary, all of the, the credentials, that badge of honor that you're in charge of lots of people and franchise. I was there when I was a regional director at Purple Bricks. You kind of have this feeling of this grand feeling of, okay, I've made it. And you're living another life, aren't you? You're living someone else's life where it's like, but do I want it? I've got it, but do I really want this? Is this who I want to be? What was your straw that broke the camel's back? What was that moment where you went, I don't want this no more?
So when I first got the job, lots of people at head office were like, "Oh, you're doing really well in life because you're so young to get this job." Everyone else who had that job before me or after me was 20 years, 30 years my senior, effectively. And so lots of people come up, "Oh, you're doing really well. You're really successful," and that gets you through for a period of time because you're like, "Oh, everyone else is saying I'm doing really well, so therefore I must be doing really well," sort of thing. I think for me, I looked at the other people within the business, and they're great people, hardworking, and they live their own life, etc. But I thought to myself, I could stay at this job for the next 20 years. And I was, early 30s when I first started there. So I could stay at the job for the next 20, 30 years or so, cushy pension, cushy company car, working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I could be quite happy with that. And I could literally live the next 30 years of my life, and that could be it. And that's fine. If that's people's choice, that's absolutely fine. I don't argue it for a second, sort of thing. But I think I got to the point where I thought to myself, am I just going to sit at this desk for the next 30 years having these same conversations over and over again? Or am I going to kind of push myself, challenge myself, and actually try something new? And I thought, actually, and as I said earlier, I wasn't particularly happy at that stage of my life. So I thought, well, I've tried it. It's going well in one respect. So the professional side of things is going really well, but the personal side of things isn't going so well. So basically, what have I got to lose?
Love that. Fortune favours the brave.
Yeah, that kind of answers part of the question I was going to ask in terms of that transition from working with the franchisees at your previous role. And now I'm guessing, is it a lot of self-employed agents that you work with in your current role now, or is it a mix of employed and self-employed?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of having a niche, and I like to think I've got quite a good niche. So initially, when I first launched, I still am the estate agent consultancy, but it was, any estate agent, you've got for sale board, I'm your guy, sort of thing. Whereas over the next sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 months sort of thing, I found I got more and more traction with the self-employed estate agents and the brokerages as well, sort of thing. And they're kind of my main area that were getting my sort of notice, and I was helping them, and it was kind of fulfilling both our sort of potentials on that side. So over the coming weeks, months, years sort of thing, I've niched and niched and niched and niched. So now my only clients I work with are self-employed estate agents or the brokerage models behind the scenes. So that's it, basically. I don't think I've got any clients at the moment that are sort of on the payroll with regard to working for Countrywide, Connells, or whatever it may be, I'm not really interested in the nicest possible way. I like working in the self-employed world because it's a quick moving ship. And I can go have a video call with somebody and say, these are the changes you need to make in your business today. We can have a video call in 2-3 weeks' time. And they'll be like, yeah, great, did it. And I've had a great result off the back of it. Whereas if I sat in a head office meeting with Connells Countrywide, for example, I go, great, guys, here's the ideas you need to do to revolutionize your business and make yourself a lot more money. And by the time I actually got to the ground floor, a year later and got diluted down 15 times, it just wouldn't be the same. So I like bang for buck in results, and you get that more, in my experience, with the self-employed model.
Yeah, you can see those quicker wins, quicker results as well. So I'm guessing from what you mentioned earlier, is you're more dealing with more quality over quantity compared to what you're dealing with in the franchise model you was at.
Yeah. So without sounding too much like a, can I swear in the podcast?
Of course, feel free.
Our last podcast had a lot of swearing in, so.
Oh, fine. Okay. Well, okay. It's not even that bad. But without sounding like a complete dick, if you have a video call with myself wanting to work with me, you're more likely to get a no than you are to get a yes. So for me, the business model is built on clients improving their business. So if your business doesn't improve, I'm literally free of charge. So if you work alongside ourselves and your business doesn't grow, why should I send you a bill? In the same way that if you guys got instructed on a house tomorrow and you didn't sell it, that's your job. Therefore, you're not going to put an invoice at the end of it. So my goal is to get you to grow your business. So why would I be cheeky enough to send you an invoice if your business doesn't grow? So therefore, if I have an initial video call with somebody and they come to me and go, oh, Chris, I kind of work a few days in the business. I've kind of not paid it much attention. I've kind of crashed it into the crash barrier a few times over the last 6 months or so. Can you drag it off of that crash barrier and make it into a decent business? Technically, yes, I could do. I absolutely could do. But for me, the business is made to take people who are on chapter 1, but want to get to chapter 5 as quick as possible. So if they're, if you're motivated and hungry and you've got the kind of will behind you to win, fantastic. You're absolutely up the right sort of street for clients for ourselves. If I think you're not on board with growing your business, I probably won't waste my time, because I could be the most amazing personal trainer in the world, but if you don't turn up to the gym, what's the point?
Yeah, I must admit, that's why when we very first sort of came into proper contact, when we spoke, we had a conversation around, how your model works, how our model works, and all that sort of stuff. Then we progressed to having the podcast episode together. I sensed that quite early on in the conversation that there's a lot of synergy between your approach to business and the way in which we run ours. And I really like that it's, especially when we're bringing new partners into the business, it's about helping them understand that you don't need to be all things to all people. And actually, I had an appointment on Saturday where I met with a client, and I was like the 5th valuation that they had booked. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm 1 of 5, no problem at all. And they were like, so, talk to us about as the age old stuff, the fees and the contract terms. I'm like, look, I want to be really straight with you from the get-go. From my perspective, this is about whether or not we can work together. So I'm likely not to be the cheapest option that you're going to consider, but I'll share with you how we can work together. And if you think I'm a good fit for you and I think you're a good fit for me, then we could potentially look at doing business at the end of this meeting. They were like, wow, that's the first time we've had an estate agent, you're the last one to come and see us, who's actually talked to us like it's a partnership rather than pitching to us. I'm like, well, it's got to be right for both sides. Otherwise, what's the point in us working together? And it completely changed the dynamic of the appointment, completely. And so when we first came into contact, I was like, this is a guy who isn't about mass. This is about quality. And so I had a question connected to the estate agency consultancy and its growth. So when did you launch?
April last year. So we're kind of a year and a half old.
So you're about 18 months old. And it's fair and safe to say that you've become, look, you're a very humble guy, so I'll say it for you. You've become a very well-known face very quickly. This will be by design. You strike me as a very organized, very structured, very methodical operator. How did you formulate your plan? Because I do feel that your growth and your way of doing things, you've got a blueprint or a framework that you overlay into these agents that you're taking from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So without giving away too much of your secret sauce that people pay you for, what was your strategy for launching the business to get such prominence so quickly?
So I think there's a mindset bit to it, number one. So I think the mindset part of it is probably the biggest issue. Probably the actual, registering a limited company, for example, it takes 10 minutes on Company's House. You pay your 12 quid, 17 quid these days. Yeah, it's not a big deal. So people are like, oh, I'm now a company director. You're like, okay, fantastic. You logged onto Company's House and you paid 12 quid. Well done. So the actual practicalities of doing things isn't really that hard. It's just getting out of your own way, a lot of it. So actually for me, I was like, well, the biggest blocker in most people doing anything in their life is just them saying, oh, I can't do it, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too tall, or I'm too short, whatever it may be. So I kind of had a bit more of a, well, I've sworn once, so I'll swear twice. I was more of a fuck it, I'm just going to go for it sort of thing. Maximum attack. No one's going to invite me to the table and say, oh, well, come on, Chris, come onto the table with us sort of thing. So I know that for me, if I don't get my elbows out and say, actually, this is what I want to do and this is what I kind of want to prove and how I can help people, no one else is going to invite me to that. So for me, am my biggest cheerleader of my business. I think that's absolutely rightly so. And that's not in like an arrogant, Chris is amazing way, because there's many things I can improve upon. But with regard to kind of actually just doing stuff, I don't overthink about what's going to work, what's not going to work. I go, I think this is the plan going forward, and I just action it from there. So I don't get in my own way too much with regard to, I think doing a podcast is a great idea. Great, okay, I can organise a podcast, fine, no problem at all. Is it technically hard? No, I send a Zoom link out, I press record, and I talk to people for half an hour. Is the emotion? Yeah, exactly. Is the emotional part of it? Oh, what if no one listens to it? What if I sound stupid? What if I stutter a few times? Yeah, absolutely. But I try as much as I possibly can do to minimize that as much as I can to make it a smaller deal in my business. Is there times where I think to myself, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's completely human when you do that sort of stuff. But generally, I think 90% of it is just turning up and sort of going, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let's go for it. Maximum attack. It might be amazing. It might be terrible. So, I launched my first book in beginning part of the year. I think it's like January, February sort of direction. My goal, I thought, I give away the book for free of charge. So if I kind of get rid of 50 copies, I'll be over the moon. But I'm doing this kind of more as much for me and the business as I am for people actually kind of reading it. It's now up to, it's knocking on about 1,000 copies that have been sort of sold in inverted commas and people have downloaded it. Great, amazing. That's fun. My expectation, if I got 50, I'd be over the moon with that. That's absolutely great. So all you can do is focus on your outputs for your business, and then the results will come off the back of it. So for me, it's about looking at it going, right, okay, well, how can I be as many places as I possibly can be, with as many messages as I possibly can be, and kind of regard as well as it possibly can be. So it's quite a logical step to go, right, well, if you want to be respected, if you write a book, people respect you because you're an author. I got a B at GCSE English, and I managed to write a 95,000 page book, which people have bought 1,000 times. Great. So if I can do it, everyone out there listening to this podcast can absolutely do it as well. I sound like a posh idiot. I talk too quickly. I mumble occasionally. I've got a podcast. Every episode gets over 100 listeners on my podcast. I'm over the moon for it sort of thing. So the biggest part of it is not getting yourself in the way of these things, because you know what you need to do. If I said to you guys, went to you both, right, guys, let's get in shape, let's get fit sort of thing. Let's write down the top 3 things we need to do to get fit. You'd be like, well, go to the gym a bit more, probably eat healthy and cut out the junk food. Okay, well, if we just did that for the next year or so, we can meet up in a year's time. We're like, guys, we're in great shape. So it isn't particularly complicated to get a business that is doing well and cooking on gas. You just need to do the stuff that you should be doing.
It's so true. It's so true. The reason I've grinned from the point you mentioned the word mindset is because that's literally where when we onboard a partner or we have a conversation with anyone that's talking to us about any form of coaching or support, it's like, you got to get this right first. You got to get your mind right first, because nothing else is going to work unless your head is in the right place. And so, it's such a powerful statement. Was there any inspiration behind the direction? I've obviously watched your journey, and I saw your book come out. I've seen your interactions with certain businesses and the way, I've been on the pod. I see your LinkedIn content, and I feel like there's probably one person that springs to my mind that potentially could have been an inspiration behind the journey you've been on. Has there been any sort of mentors or inspirations for you that have led you on the journey?
There's many. So I'm doing a LinkedIn post next week about, I wouldn't say copying is the wrong word, taking inspiration from people and kind of nicking the best bits sort of thing. So for example, if I was going to run a Facebook ad tomorrow, what do I know about Facebook ad design? Very little. But there's people out there. So there's the Daniel Priestleys, who I think you're probably alluding to, of this world, who will run Facebook adverts all the time. And so I literally did it the other day. Daniel's currently running an advert for I think like a free drop-in session sort of thing. The advert came up, thought that looks really good. Record screen, right? So flick through his advert, record screen, right? Turn the screen recording off. So in the future, if I want to do a Facebook ad, for example, Mr. Priestley spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of research kind of working that out. I can just shortcut to the end. If you look at someone like James Clear, for example, James Clear emails his bulk email out every Thursday afternoon. And I'm sure he spent lots and lots and lots of money researching to find out that Thursday afternoon was the best time to send it. Thanks, James. I'll nick that. Thank you very much. I'll now send my emails on Thursday afternoon. I don't need to do no research on that in any way, shape, or form. So is there people I've taken inspiration from? Absolutely. So, the sort of who's, Daniel Priestley, absolutely. Robin Waite, who's actually my business coach, who's better put a plug in for him as well. Alex Amosi, like a lot of his stuff as well. I think that if you can kind of resonate with people and kind of nick sort of one little bit and sort of borrow bits from them, but like I don't want to be Daniel Priestley's clone. I don't want to be Alex Amosi's clone. I'm nowhere near that in shape. But if I can nick little bits of the content they do and think, actually, that's really clever, and I can kind of just take that into my sort of world and sphere, amazing. So, there's certainly things that I've done where you can kind of track and go, actually, that's from so-and-so, and that's from so-and-so, and you've done that because of so-and-so. And it's all kind of mushed together in this, mushy shell of myself into sort of something that kind of resembles a bit of all of it. So absolutely, I think the biggest mistake that many people make, and I'm trying to avoid it as much as I possibly can do, is thinking that in somehow you're the finished product, and somehow you're the, I've written a book now, so therefore I'm the best so-and-so. Like, far from it. I've got another book coming out, which might be better than the first one. It might not be better than the first. I don't know until I release it. I don't know. But I think you need to be open to the fact you can always do more. You can always learn more. And there's people out there that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And if I can take a little bit of nugget from what they've got, then I will be all over that. I don't care where it comes from.
Love that. It's standing on the shoulders of giants, right? You've not stolen anything. You're just taking you're walking down the pathway that's already been trodden and picking little gems up along the way and then turning it into your own little masterpiece. Stand on the shoulders of giants. That's all it is.
Progress over perfection as well. I think everyone tries to perfect and have the absolute perfect finished product sometimes, whereas you just got to get out there and do it. And I think the hardest part is getting started for a lot of people in business. And yeah, it sounds like if you can get started and get some progression, you get.
I think in those situations, it's as hard as you make it. So I'm a big fan that kind of overthinking things leads to depression. So the more you overthink things, if I think, for example, I've got PropX next week, of which I am not I don't consider myself a particularly fantastic public speaker. Again, quite a quick talker, a bit of a mumbler, a bit posh, all this sort of stuff. So, but I know I'm going to stand in front of 300-400 people, sort of thing. And actually, I'm trying to think about it as little as I possibly can do, because I know if I'll be thinking to myself, I think, oh, what can go wrong? What if I trip up? What if I stumble? What if I sneeze halfway through? In reality, 99.99% of things aren't going to happen in any way, shape, or form. But I know that I've got a really good talk to talk about, and if I learn that as much as I possibly can do, what else can I do? So I try wherever I possibly can do to blank out that sort of 99% of BS that is there. That probably isn't going to happen in reality, because actually doing it isn't as bad as you think it's going to be. And once you've done it, you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. Did my first podcast, that was pretty easy. Wrote my first book, that was all right, sort of thing. Did my first LinkedIn post and went live on Facebook and whatever else might be. That wasn't too bad, actually. There's always just a starting point. You can always just improve from there, but you don't want to be the best kept secret who just never get started.
I feel like my next question, you've kind of answered it throughout the conversation, but when you first sit down with someone and you kind of go, right, you're a good fit for me. You've got the right mental attitude. You've got the right kind of ingredients. I feel like we've got a good dynamic here. When you first sit down with someone, what is your first port of call with them? What process, if you were sitting down with someone to coach them for the very first time and help them, you're obviously going to dissect their business first and understand their start point. What then? What happens from there? I feel like there's some of what you've shared answers this, but I'd love to hear it encapsulated.
Yeah, so I think as businesses, all businesses are there to fix problems. So if you're thirsty, you have a Coca-Cola. If you're hungry, you get McDonald's. All businesses there to kind of fix a problem. So first goal of any business is to find out what those problems are. And so with the clients, in before they start working with myself, I literally will say to them, right, where are we today? I've been online, you've got 10 hours of a sale, your presentation's a bit rubbish, you're doing X, Y, and Z sort of thing. Right, where do you want to be in the future? Let's fast forward 12 months down the line. where do you want to get to? And they're like, I want 100 grand. I want to have, Wednesdays off, pick my kids up from school. Great, cool. That's kind of where we're there and we're there sort of thing. What's the problems between those two? What are the issues that are holding you back from getting there to there? And they'll go, well, I'm rubbish at lead generation. My market appraisal instruction rate isn't very good. And my fee's not very high to get that sort of direction. Okay, great. Well, let's ignore the rest of the noise that I could have talked about. Let's just focus on the problems we can go in that situation. So that is kind of the starting block for any business relationship, is understand what problems you are fixing. And if you don't know what problems you're fixing, speak to your clients and say, how have you found, moving house or coming on the market with us or selling with us? And you're not looking for positive news here. You're looking for bad news. You're looking for them to go, I was really stressed out when I came to moving house, or it really frustrated me tidying up when the kids were out, and all sort of bits and pieces. Great, you can fix that problem. So first point of business is, what's the problems in front of us and how can we fix it? On a more granular level, if I got dropped into an estate agency business today and they said, right, Chris, you're here for 24 hours, let's get as many improvements into business you possibly can do, the first thing I would look at is their available stock, because it's the lowest hanging fruit. Because a change of the marketing or a change of the price or anything around that, you can go from having 10 properties for sale and no properties under offer to having 5 properties for sale, 5 properties under offer, and now you've got a 25 grand pipeline going into business that makes the difference between you kind of surviving and not surviving. So on a granular level, the lowest hanging fruit in most estate agency businesses are what they've got available at the moment and what they're doing with that.
Love it. Yeah.
That kind of really opens up to my next question as well. I think I feel we've kind of moved it on to talking a little bit more about the employed agents, and you obviously work with a lot of self-employed agents. You obviously work with a lot of self-employed agents. I think a lot of our audience will be those who are considering self-employed or maybe already self-employed. So what would you say the biggest challenges that you've noticed self-employed agents or those considering self-employed would face or are facing?
So the biggest issue you've got as a self-employed estate agent today is, does anyone even know who you are in any way, shape or form? Whether you think you're the best estate agent in the world or the worst estate agent in the world, best advertising and worst advertising, if we went to them saying, great, you're going to sell your property next week, let's get a couple of estate agents around, are you even on that list? Do they even know you exist in any way, shape or form? When you first launch your estate agency business, most of your time is going to be spent there waving your hand, not literally, saying, I'm an estate agent, I can sell your property, I can help you. So that is the first difference. And I think the differentiator between the two parts of estate agency is that most when they go self-employed, they see it as, I'm a great estate agent. Put me in the living room and I'll convert it. I'll get it on the market. I'll sell it. I'm great at fees, all that sort of stuff. But actually, there's a whole different chapter to your business which you are missing completely there, and that is actually having a functioning estate agency to support you being an estate agent. So I speak to clients every day, and I speak to people who aren't clients as well. Some have got an amazing business, they're making tons of money. You've got other ones who are at different end of the spectrum and they're just kind of trying to turn a corner sort of thing. Actually, if you got both those people in your living room for evaluation, you'd struggle to tell the difference. You would go, they're both great people, they're both great estate agents, they value the right sort of price, they tell me how they're going to sell their property. But the difference between the ones that are absolutely great and the ones that are making lots of money is they've got a business behind the scenes that allows them to shine, allows them to show actually how good they are, rather than kind of being the best kept secret in their town. So if you are going self-employed, maximum attack, full elbows out. No one, as I said earlier, no one is going to invite you to the table and be like, oh yeah, you can have a 2% market share, no problem at all. They want that as much as you want that. So you need to go elbows out. I'm here and I'm taking this from the local estate agent, and this is how I'm going to do it. So you need to have that mindset, head down, push forward. And for the first 2-3 months or so, I would focus purely on output of your business. I wouldn't give a monkeys about input in any way, shape or form. So what I mean by that is that you should be looking at, right, what's the most amount of marketing I can deploy for the next couple of months or so? What's the number of the doors I can knock on, leaflets, withdrawn letters, all this sort of stuff, social media posts, etc. Let's just focus on that. To come back to our gym analogy, if you guys spend 6 hours a day on a treadmill, you're going to lose weight. It's just like maths. Like, you can do whatever you like outside of that. It's just that is going to happen in reality. So let's just focus on getting that 6 hours on a treadmill every day, which is, if I knock on 30 doors a day, if I get a certain amount of letters out, if I get a certain amount of leaflets out, if I put a certain amount of social media content out there, the rest will follow off the back of it. So try not to, this is quite a hard thing to do, try not to worry too much about the input, what's coming into your business. Focus on more what you can get out, because that's what you can control. You can control what marketing goes out from your business day by day, whether it's the first leaflet or the 1,000th leaflet. You've got no idea. Just because someone phones back off my first leaflet doesn't mean I'm the best leaflet dropper in the world. Doesn't mean I'm the worst leaflet drop in the world, it's my 1,000. But what I can control is the amount of marketing my business distributes to actually puts my flag up the pole, say, I'm an estate agent in your local area and I can help you if you're X, Y, and Z.
Like that.
Do you know, the reason I chuckle is it's almost like this conversation is a bit like we've worked with Chris, and just for full disclosure, we haven't worked with Chris. I'm sure there'll be opportunities somewhere down the line where we will collaborate, because I know from the conversation I've had with you, there's a lot of synergy. I'm sensing that Jack probably feels exactly the same way. But the reason I chuckle is we've built throughout the course of the latter part of last year and early part of this, our 90-day blueprint to launch a new agent. And much of what you've just shared in that segment there is built into our 90-day blueprint around what you put in, you know, your output and the volume of it and how you do it, and a little bit of refinement in there in the delivery mechanism and your target audience and all that sort of stuff. But it's very aligned to pretty much all of what you've just said. You can control your output. You can't control what comes back.
Mm-hmm. I'm literally just looking up at the board, the whiteboard in front of me, and we still work as agents in our business as well. And on my whiteboard in front of me, it's got letters, and then we've got week 1, 2, 3, and 4. Door knocks, week 1, 2, 3, and 4. The amount of Google reviews we get, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the amount of social media posts we put out. And I say to Laura, who's in my team, as long as we can hit the numbers that we want to do every single week and every single month, that I hit that board, I don't care what the other board says. As long as we hit those, I know the other board, the results will follow. So yeah, and I also think it's also nice to reward yourself or give yourself a pat on the back at the end of the week if you've hit your output goals, regardless of what the input goals look like. I think it's really important to reward yourself, or you feel it as though you've got an accomplishment or achievement by hitting those numbers.
Celebrate.
I think absolutely, and that's the absolute thing you should be focused on. But it is I wouldn't say an impossible challenge, but it's a very hard challenge. Because let's say, for example, you met up with your friends at the pub on a Friday night sort of thing. They went, oh, how's your new business going? You'd be like, well, I knocked on 50 doors and I delivered 1,000 leaflets last week. They can be like, what are you talking about? Like, how many houses you got for sale? How many years sold sort of thing? So I appreciate that, you know, there's a human aspect to it, that you are going to want to know how many views your social media had, for example, how many valuations have come in, how many market appraisals you've converted, how many you've sold. I completely get that. And it is almost impossible to ignore that. But as much as you can do, just focus on that output going out.
The thing is that, Chris, and you do make a very valid point, and I think the two do link together, but I look at things almost like layers or funnels or you know, like a 0 to 10 scale. And the way I interpret that is, unless your output is at a high enough level, it's I'm sure Alex Hormozy talked about it on a recent pod episode or a recent YouTube video, like, you know, this example of someone that he was mentoring, and he basically said to them, how many of the thing have you done this week? Let's say it was letters. How many letters have you put out this week? And the person would say, oh, 500. And he was like, well, that's a rookie number. It should be 5,000, 10x it. And then we can start to measure. There's no point measuring your views and your likes and your comments and your output, your income, until such time as your output is great enough for it to be worth measuring.
Yep. So
it's like knocking on 5 doors and then measuring whether or not it's worth doing based on those 5. No, go and knock 50. Let's start measuring whether it's worth doing.
We used to, at the Property Franchise Group, we used to run boot camps. So basically anyone who was either just started or they're at a kind of like want to do better or whatever it may be, or a top achievers club, we'd run boot camps. And boot camps would run for about 8 weeks or so. Weekly video call. Right, this week we're talking about, I don't know, how to door knock, for example. Homework for the week, right, clear off, go door knocking, come back next week, tell us how you've done. That was the overall gist of it. And pretty much every week there was a clear divide. And let's take door knocking as an example. Half the room would come back and be like, door knocking is the worst thing on earth. It doesn't work. It's been a waste of my time. I'm never doing it ever again. The other half would come back and be like, door knocking is the best thing in the world. I can't believe I've not done it sooner. It's amazing. It's this, it's that. And you stand at the front of the team and you're like, how can I have half the room saying it's terrible and the other half who are doing the exact same job as saying it's absolutely brilliant? And actually, when you kind of boiled it down, the ones that said it's terrible were like, oh, yeah, I knocked on 5 doors. They're all out. The other ones that actually said it was really good were like, I knocked on 100 and it was really good. I got 2 market appraisals off the back of it. So usually it's just that sort of, well, as Alex Hormozy says, the more, better, new sort of aspect to go, actually, can we just do more of it? We get a good result off the back of it. So let's just do more of it in our business and then look to improve it over time. That's probably not a bad place to be.
Yeah, totally agree. So we've talked about your journey. We've talked about what we believe good looks like and the journey that people should go through in terms of how they should measure and all this sort of really good stuff. what happens next now? It's almost like a chronological journey, and there was no set blueprint. Like we said before we hit record, we like to go off on these little tangents and see where they take us. And we've been on 35 minutes, and like, there's so much in this. There's some real gold for the listeners. What does the future, in your view, what's 5 years from now for a estate agency going to look like?
I think that the biggest area of growth, and you guys will be pleased to hear this, is going to be in the self-employed world. No surprises, because that is, I see that as a fantastic place to be. And it's going to make me sound very sort of old and black and whitey here. But if that was around when I was 21, 22, 23 years old, I'd be biting your absolute arm off to kind of get going with that. Because if you look at launching an estate agency business, 10 years ago, for example, well, first of all, go to the bank, get a loan of 100 grand, go find your office and all this sort of stuff. Whereas now you're like, actually, as long as I've got enough money to live for the next sort of, 6 to 12 months sort of thing, then you're looking in the right sort of direction, and the marketing spend on top of that as well, etc. So the bar of entry to having your own estate agency business has dropped with regard to a financial level, which is, I think, absolutely brilliant. So I can only see the self-employed area growing. I mean, it's now it's sort of coming towards 10% sort of direction. I'd imagine that in the next sort of 5 years or so, that being more like 25% of the marketplace. So that's going to have a healthy jump, because I think a lot of people that are in the corporate world, and some people will be sat in the corporate world and going, yeah, I'm fine, I'm happy, I get good pension payments, I've got a company car, and it's fine, no problems at all, good, well done you, sort of thing. But there'll be some people going, actually, I want to roll the dice here slightly and actually kind of back myself to actually deliver a better product and have a good business myself, sort of thing. So I think you're going to find more and more people over the next 5 years or so, probably not even that, in the next 6 months to a year or so, that are going to go, actually, lots of these guys are having it away and doing really, really well. But I think the important thing to point out here is that there's a social media versus reality aspect of it as well. If you go onto LinkedIn these days and Instagram, it's all kind of like follow me around the house video tour sort of thing. And it's like, some people might watch that and go, well, I can record 3 videos a day and I can have a successful business where I earn 200 grand a year. That's not the reality of it. Those people who are doing a quick 2-minute video of following around the house and presenting a video tour, which looks very fun and joyful, actually behind the scenes have had, blood, sweat, tears, hardworking, door knocking, leaflet dropping to get to that stage. So anyone who thinks, I'm going to go self-employed, it's going to be easy. It won't be. The conversion rate for most self-employed estate agents isn't fantastic in the grand scheme of things. That's one of the reasons I did my book, is to improve that. So I want everyone to have a better business. But if you look at it and go, actually, I'm willing to put the work in, put the time in, amazing. But it's never been a better time to do it. So, that is where I see the biggest growth in the estate agency world, is that self-employed area. That is going to grow to, over 20% pretty quickly, I would imagine. And there's going to be a tipping point where it's going to go from like 10% to 15%, like that sort of thing. It's really going to come around in the not too distant future.
Yeah, the snowball's definitely gaining momentum. You can sense that just across the self-employed space alone on LinkedIn. It's definitely starting to really pick up some speed.
I've started to notice as well, I think there's going to be agents that are going to really be driving that, and brokerages that are going to be driving that as well. But it's interesting, because only recently I've started to have a lot of clients ask the question as to whether I'm self-employed or employed. And I think even clients now are starting to understand that you will get a better service potentially if someone has their name above the door, if it's their reputation that's on the line, then they want to work with a self-employed agent. So quite recently, we've had a couple of clients that have asked us whether we're self-employed or employed, and it's been an interesting conversation. So I think not only are the agents and the brokerages going to be driving the self-employed, I think potentially clients will start driving that as well.
Well, I think it's gone from a case where historically, let's go back, 10, 15 years, whatever it may be. If you went to someone's property and said, I work for myself and I don't have a shop and I don't do this, and they kind of think, okay, well, bigger is better. Whereas I think sort of the mindset has sort of changed, whether that's been sort of personal brand led or whatever else it might be, I don't know. But I think now people think that kind of smaller is better, and actually bespoke is better. And actually, if you come forward and say, we're the biggest estate agent in town, we sell 500 houses a year and we've sold 6,000 in your street, they're like, okay, I'm going to be one of a number very, very quickly. But I think people will now appreciate, especially in the estate agency world, being looked after and actually having more personalized service, and actually like to know the person who is going to be selling their most valuable asset, rather than just being thrown on the top of the pile.
Yeah, it's definitely a very noticeable differentiator, having that one-to-one relationship. So it's a case of, that smooth transition from start to finish, one person dealing with it. That I describe it when I meet with my clients as, what you're going to get from me is a concierge approach to your moving process. So if you need support with it, that's my job. I'm not going to expect you to be involved with the viewings. I'm not going to expect you to have to correct me on any part of the way in which this process has been done, because that's my job to know. If you want help with the negotiation on your onward purchase, that's my job. That's what I'm here for. That's where the value add comes. So yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. As soon as you mention the way in which, when I meet with a client, how we operate, their whole energy changes. I'm dealing with the business owner. And we encourage all of our partners to deliver it in the same way, because they are the business owner.
Yeah. I think it's the market's driving that at the moment as well. We were very fortunate a couple of years back where properties were selling very, very quickly. They were listed on Rightmove, often sold in a few days, which sometimes pains me a little bit, because I think, how much longer could you have left it to attract a slightly better price? However, we're in a very different market now, and I think people are looking for that more bespoke approach, someone who can be a little bit more proactive and help them get better results. So I think that the market's also a reason for why maybe that is starting to come up a lot more now as well.
Yeah, I think estate agency is one of the few industries where you are a property expert, but yet you listen to the opinions of people who aren't experts. So, for example, what I mean by that, let's say, for example, I took my car to the garage and they said, Mr. Webb, your head gasket's gone on your car. I wouldn't be like, yeah, but is it the injectors though? But is it the, I don't know, handbrake? Is it the tires falling off sort of thing? You're like, you're the expert. I just nod and pay. That's literally, that's part of my relationship. I turn up with the car, you fix it, I give you the money, I drive away. That's kind of part of the deal. Whereas, I think, James, you actually hit the nail on the head there. You are the expert in selling properties. So therefore, you should be sort of the point of the spear there. So if anyone's got any questions about anything property related to how a viewing goes, how property should be presented, the social media side of things, it goes through you. It's not often, people go, actually, yeah, but the vendor says they think property's worth this much, or the vendor wants to pay this much fee, or they actually want to put 25 pictures online instead of what Rightmove recommends, sort of thing. It's like, no, you're the expert. You need to have the sort of owners behind you to sort of back yourself and say, no, this is not how you're going to sell your property correctly. This is our proven strategy to sell your property from step 1 to step 100. Don't come on board and kind of throw your random sort of stuff on top of it. It's never been tried, never been tested because you watched Homes Under the Hammer once. I am the property expert, and this is how we do things.
Yeah, be the authority in that environment, and you can be the authority without being a dick, right? So it's very easy to position yourself. But I do think that a lot of the authority building comes before the meeting even takes place. If you've built yourself a really strong online presence and your direct mail content is written in such a way where people are like, these guys, A, know their shit, but B, they're different. They do something a bit different. And I'm curious about that difference. Already you're starting to build that authority before you visit.
Yep. 100%. And it's I can't remember the book by Chris Voss, but it's it talks about sort of the other one he did. It did an estate agent one.
The agent.
Full fee agent, there we go. And he talks about the the Joker and the something else. So basically, either you're the first choice agent when you walk to the front door and you're on a winner. It's kind of yours to lose, or you are sort of second choice and you kind of have to really go for it, sort of thing. So your job is to make yourself the number one pick before you walk in the front door. And there's loads of things you can do with regard to branding, market awareness, even customer service before the market appraisal, for example, that actually make it yours to lose. So that's ultimately where you want to get to. So all your stuff you're doing around selling properties beforehand and your marketing, etc., that is all designed to kind of put you up on a pedestal. So when you do go on that market appraisal, they're like, I already know you're different. I already know you've sold property. I've already seen your social media content. I've already read your blog. I've already done I know you're different before you walk in the front door. Then it's yours to lose. If you're the same as everyone else, good luck, fingers crossed, 1 in 3 or whatever it may be. Give yourself a bit of a punt and see how it goes, sort of thing. But your main goal is to make yourself different from every other estate agent out there. And it isn't hard. It isn't complicated. Once you know the problems your clients have, your job is to fix them. So if you go, okay, my niche is primarily working with families and family properties. Well, some of their problems are going to be having their property clean and tidy and getting their kids out. Okay, well, let's go down the route of saying, let's do a launch day for the property in a couple of weeks' time, because that's going to help with the cleaning side of things. And we've got a local relationship with a cleaning company who actually can come around, and part of your service is the day before your property goes live, they'll come and clean your house for you to make sure it's 100% for our open day. Okay, you've seen the problem, you fixed it. Wasn't hard to do. You just thought a little bit outside the box and made yourself different from that one little aspect to it. So, what are you going to do when we go on the open day? We'll probably go to the pub. Well, great news, I've actually organised a discount with the local pub. There's 20% off because I sent you in that direction. All that took from you is a phone call to a pub and a phone call to a cleaner. But suddenly, you're different than any other agent. So It's about looking at what you can offer people, and you are there to fix problems. Find out what the problems are, think how you can fix them, and you'll make yourself different.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Top advice. I did have another question. I feel like that little segment there is a great place to finish. But one last question. And then you can go and have a dip in the pool and probably then pick up your next call. So,
well, you say that. I've got a client video call in 6 minutes. There's never a dip in the pool in the daytime. I assure you.
So literally, this is going to be a 2-minute answer. So it's going to be really, really quick. So here it is. Chris Webb, estate agents tomorrow, or you join a brokerage, doesn't really matter. You're based out of Winchester. You're about to go live. You're about to press the button and everything's about to turn on. What's the first thing you're going to do?
First job is going to get my phone out of my pocket, so never far away, hold it in front of my face, and I'm going to record a video, and it's going to say, hi, hope you're okay, huge favour to ask, I'm just about to launch my estate agency business in Winchester. I know, terrifying, but I've got a huge favour to ask. If you know anybody looking to sell their property, rent out their property, buy a property in the local area, it would be amazing if you could pass on my way. It'd be amazing. I'd love you forever. Thank you so much. I would then go onto my phone, go into broadcast list. I would select my entire phone book. I would then press send. So you might do a few messages because broadcast list is a maximum of 256 people because I've done it a few times. So it might take 4 different messages, but within 3 minutes, I've contacted 1,000 people who know, like, and trust me, and all live within the local area who I reckon know someone who's looking to sell their property. So that's my first listing in 3 minutes with no money spent. So that would be my first step.
Ladies and gents, in less than 60 seconds, you heard it here first. That Chris Webb, that was class, because that's pre-rehearsed as well. Like, that was so good. Chris, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you've got to jump on with a client, so you've got probably a couple of minutes of prep time. It's been amazing. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Thank you for having me on. It's been brilliant. Thanks so much.